Sparks that I don't remember. Hold and let it shine. Fixing stars to fade away. Fixing stars to fade away. Fixing stars to fade away.
Hello, dear friends of Kabbalah International. We are with Mario Saban.
Shalom Nacho, how are you?
Shalom, Mario. Very good. Excellent. We are going to work today on the history of Kabbalah, and we already did a first chapter. And I wanted to tell you that we talked in the first chapter about the beginnings of the Jewish mysticism. And I wanted to mention that, well, after the fall of the temple begins the diaspora of the Jewish people, and also the dissemination of Jewish mysticism itself in different parts of the world, and especially in Europe. What can you explain to us about the Kabbalah in Europe, the medieval Kabbalah?
Well, look, in principle here we have to start from the basis that hundreds of manuscripts were traveling from the east to the west for centuries. The same researcher, Aryeh Kaplan, makes reference to the fact that already in the 3rd, 4th, 5th centuries, he and some other authors understand that there were versions of different books or of different themes. But where we really have a written beginning, not from the oral tradition, because for centuries the mystics shared information by word of mouth through oral transmission of all this knowledge. What happened is that the oral tradition reached such a point that if someone died, he could leave with a lot of unrevealed knowledge. And this could be lost, so some people to begin to think that it was necessary to begin to write down these traditions, where we have the first data in Western Europe is in 1040 in the city of Lunel, near Narbonne, in the south of France in what is called Provence, where the legend says that a Jewish king, Theodoric, in the 740th, at the time of the Merovingians, at the end of the dynasty of the Merovingians, and there was always in the whole area of the south of France, Leon, a great Jewish influence since the time of the Roman Empire, there appear Abraham and Jacob Nasir, notice with the Nazarene name of Nasir, where they were dedicated to mystical subjects during all the days, financed by the Jewish community of Lunel, and there begins to appear a school, we could say a secret school, of the mysteries of Kabbalah in Lunel, Narbonne, Montpellier, and Posquières. Its influence spread throughout Provence. Interestingly, this coincided with the Cathar movement in southern France, creating an environment that fostered a certain degree of Christian heresy. This setting allowed for a more nuanced exploration of these mystical themes. In fact, there is a connection involving reincarnation between Kabbalists and Cathars, extensively researched by Gershom Scholem in an article he published on this very topic. As this develops, some of these sages of the Kabbalah are slowly migrating from Lunel, Narbonne, Montpellier to Girona. And in Girona, around the year 1100, 1080, 1100, he sages who would later build the circle of the Kabbalah of Girona began to arrive. At the same time, that is to say between 1100 and 2200, what is called the Hasidei Ashkenaz movement, which are the sages of southern Germany, will also appear. In the axis of this movement is the city of Worms, near Cologne, all of southern Germany, where Worms and Mainz also developed a type of Kabbalah that would not have much continuity because the Crusades would affect it very much. The Crusades will affect it a lot, and then the Black Plague, it will not have much continuity, but it will be very influential, especially later in the writings of another Kabbalist that we are going to name. So we have a line that appears in Lunel, Narbonne, in the south of France. It goes to Girona. In Girona, we already have Isaac the Blind. We are going to have Ezra and Azriel of Girona. They are already going to begin to make the first written works like the Portico of the Interrogator from the brothers Azriel and Ezra de Girona. In the year 1176 will appear the Sefer Yetzirah, the map of the Tree of Life, appears for the first time. There are going to be Nachmanis from Girona who are going to take the Kabbalah to Barcelona. So we already have a line coming from Montpellier to Narbonne to Girona, and from Girona to Barcelona. The student of Nachmanis from Girona is going to be Shlomo ben Adret, a very important Kabbalist as well, which means that here we have a whole line. In the meantime, a second line is coming from Zaragoza with only one person, Abraham Abulafia. Abulafia is going to deal with what we could call the ecstatic Kabbalah, the meditation with the names of God. Meanwhile, the one that comes from Girona is going to be called the Sephirotic Kabbalah, the one that has to do with the cosmogonic. The new researchers call it Theosophical Kabbalah, as Moshe of Gershom Sholem calls it Theosophical because it is a Kabbalah that studies only the Maaseh Bereshit. On the other hand, Abulafia already speaks of the ecstatic Kabbalah, where he already puts human being at the center of the question, and where he studies the ways for man to reach the divinity through meditations. And that is why he calls it the Kabbalah of the names of God, or numerological Kabbalah, or ecstatic Kabbalah. It's another type of Kabbalah. And that's why there's a clash here in Barcelona between ecstatic Kabbalah and theosophical Kabbalah, each represented by Shlomo ben Adred and Abraham Abulafia. Shlomo ben Adred eventually declared Abraham Abulafia insane. Later, Abraham Abulafia traveled eastward, claiming to have found a wife in Greece and marrying. We then see him appearing in the year of Rome, seeking a meeting with the Pope. Some believe he requested the Pope's conversion to Judaism. The Pope, however, imprisoned him. The famous anecdote relates that Abulafia told the Pope that if he imprisoned him, the Pope would die within 3 days. What happened 3 days later? The Pope died, leading to Abulafia's release from prison with the instruction never to return. Abulafia eventually, in a part of the Kingdom of Aragon, which was Sicily, and part of southern Italy was dominated by the Crown of Aragon. And he disappears because we don't know where he dies. In the south of Italy, in Sicily, exactly on the island of Comino, which is an island north of the island of Malta, and it is where apparently Abulafia lives. There we have no more data about him, in the year 1292. So that we situate ourselves, we have the year 1040, the writings of Kabbalah in Lunel, in Montpellier, in 1176. Appears the Sefer Yetzirah in Girona. Then, in 1270, the dispute of Barcelona with Nachmanides in the year 1263, the dispute of Nachmanides with Pau Christiani, and then at the beginning of the 14th century, Shlomo ben Hedred, and the appearance in Barcelona in the year 1270 of Abraham Abulafia. What happens from here? Yosef of Jicatilla studied with Abraham Abulafia in Barcelona. Abulafia said, I had 4 students, only one understood, that is Yosef of Jicatilla. Yosef of Jicatilla began to write. He went to Segovia, and he began to write the Share Ora at the gates of the light, which is the union between the Kabbalah of the names of God of Abulafia with the Kabbalah of the Sephiroth of the school of Girona. That is to say, a fusion of 2 types of Kabbalah confronting each other.
Yes.
The Abulafian, or ecstatic Kabbalah, is the unifier. He unified the 2, and that is why the work Sharior at the Gates of Light is a key work, because it includes the unification of the 12. These 2 schools are united, and it is in Segovia, where it seems that Moisés de Leon appears, and it is in Segovia where Moses of Leon, some other sage who is around, and Yosef of Jicatilla begin to write the Zohar, which is the Zohar that was finished with Moses of Leon in Avila around 1300-1305. Therefore, notice that the Zohar was completed in Avila, of a group that begins to write it in Segovia, of which the member of Segovia comes from Barcelona, of which in Barcelona there is Abulafia, confronting the one who came to Girona, and here we are seeing the whole movement of Kabbalah that is taking place. Now, from 1305, what happens? After the disappearance of Yosef de Gicatila, it seems that Yosef de Gicatila had some secret pupils in Segovia, but these secret pupils, we do not detect them well where they go. But it seems to be that they go to Zamora, because in Zamora, Isaac de Campanton appears, who is a Kabbalist not very well known, almost absolutely unknown. He says that he goes to pray to the tomb of Gicatila in Segovia. Yosef de Campanton dies approximately in 1460, and they do not give the data between one and the other. That is to say, between Yosef de Campanton and Gicatila, they could not have known each other biographically speaking. This means that undoubtedly there were students of Gicatila who were Campanton's secret teachers, that Isaac de Campanton studied with them in Zamora, and that, among the students of Yosef de Campanton, some continued studying the Kabbalah and went to Castilla. Surely some of them went to Toledo, taught him Kabbalah to the secret circles of Toledo, where David ibn Zimbra learned, who was born in Toledo in 1478 approximately, when in 1492 the expulsion of the Jews from Spain took place, and David ibn Zimbra went to Egypt and became the teacher of Isaac Luria. Therefore, look at this. Now we have the whole scheme. Lunar and Montpellier 1040, Kabbalists who go to Girona. Girona 1176, appearance of the Tree of Life and appearance of the Sefer Yetzirah and of the Bajir. That school goes to Barcelona through Nachmanides. Nachmanides teaches Shlomo ben Adred. Abulafia comes from Zaragoza. The two merge with Yosef de Gicatilla, who goes to Segovia. In Segovia he studies and works with Moisés de León. They begin to write the Zohar. The Zohar is finished in Avila. The students of Gicatilla go to Zamora, Campanton appears. The students of Campanton go to Valladolid some, and others to Toledo. David ibn Zimbra appears, expulsion of 1492. David ibn Zimbra ends up in Egypt and is the teacher of Isaac Luria. This means that Isaac Luria will receive 500 years of tradition of the Kabbalah. And there ends the first epoch, which is the medieval epoch, and another epoch will appear.
For the next Mario.
Amen.